Welcome to the Near Memo, a weekly conversation about search, social, and commerce. What happened, why it matters, and the implications for local.
So David, let's move on to you and the citations issue, which has been, a sort of persistent topic of discussion in the industry SEO industry for a long time. Less so today than it was.
Yeah, kind of a consistent debate over the years in terms of the value and the sort of rise and fall of the value of citations. I think, Greg, when you were at Uberall, you guys actually did some research to suggest, hey, they still matter at some level. And I think that's still true particularly for new businesses or businesses without a significant inbound link footprint, that, these sort of directory citations are still hold plenty of value. I no longer see them as the clear differentiators in the strength of what's now a Google Business Profile, formerly a place, I guess it would have been back in the late aughts and early teens, when there just weren't a lot of other signals that Google could rely on for local businesses. I'm not even sure they had fully fleshed out their sort of native review feature within Google Maps, within Google Search. So they certainly didn't have the size of the review corpus that they have today to use as a ranking signal. Many local businesses did not have websites. So in many cases, these third-party profiles were the only validation that Google could glean in terms of, what category these businesses were in, whether or not they were open, and those sorts of considerations. Now, fast forward 10 years or so, and every business that's a going concern has claimed its Google Business Profile, is submitting information to Google directly, largely, I would say a larger percentage anyway, of businesses that would appear in sort of frequent consumer categories have their own websites. In many cases, these websites have links coming in. So I think from that standpoint, Google doesn't need these third-party directories as much for the data validation angle that they did rely on them pretty heavily for, like I said, 10, 12, 15 years ago. The other thing is, even as it relates directly to citations, that one of the real values of citations was, frankly, that these were sites that Google sort of expected local businesses to appear on because they were so well ranked in Google's organic algorithm, right? Or whether you call it PageRank or domain authority or whatever, if you did a search for chiropractors in San Diego, you were going to get certainly Yelp, which you still get, and yellowpages.com and City Search and Merchant
Super
Circle
Pages,
and all of these other super pages, all of these other directories, right? That search for chiropractor 10, 12, 15 years ago, that the results that Google was returning, the highest ranked results in their algorithm were directory pages. And so the mentions of businesses and the links to those businesses' websites from very high authority at the time, localized search results, propelled those individual businesses that were mentioned or linked onto greater rankings themselves. If you do that search today, Yelp is basically the only directory that ranks anymore. And this is, I think, what Joy Hawkins was pointing out this week with her tweet, that just the number of pages indexed and the amount of traffic that a lot of these, I would say, lower value, I'm not going to name names, but just broadly, these sort of non-Yelp directories no longer have the sort of foothold in the search results where a mention or a link on those sites is actually going to move the needle for you as a local business, because they're very low authority. They're not particularly well-trusted sites anymore. And so if you're a business or an agency or even a national brand, you should be looking at, as you should have been, same as you should have been 10, 12, 15 years ago, look at the sites that are ranking for the keywords you want to rank for. And if there are neutral players, whether they're directories or critic lists or individual articles on media platforms, those are the sites where you should be trying to get additional exposure, not just for the ranking benefit, but also because those sites are going to draw in clicks and you might actually get direct customers from those sites, which again is no longer true on most of these long tail directories. So it's not that I think that something has changed in the algorithm or anything like that. I think the algorithm is largely the same. It's just that the sites that are ranking and And Google's reliance on the validity or accuracy of the data on these citation sites is what's declined over these last several years.
Well, these sites never kept pace with the internet. They were sort of thin sites that just had, database listings, and some of them had a few reviews, and then they put banner ads everywhere. And they just never evolved those to be genuinely useful. So they became, relative to other sites that have meaningful content, they became thinner and thinner and thinner. The challenge, I think, for a lot of local businesses is that they don't know how to get placements on these directories themselves, and they're being sold, by agencies or whomever. They're being sold these sort of broad distribution packages because of the listings management firms do this. Yext and Uberall and others do these. We'll put you on X number of directories, and so they have some high quality directories, and they have a lot of garbage in their networks, and so you wind up showing up on those by default because you're paying some amount of money, some fixed fee, and that's. I mean, I think Darren's product is probably the one to go with, but it's not easy for local businesses to figure out, how do I get access to the relevant directories.
Well, and the other problem is it becomes an ongoing tactic as opposed to a one and done table stakes activity, right? And so the pricing becomes inequitable, right? They should be spending their money on the valuable activities that David mentioned, and not on
an annuity for the
exactly.
listing company.
Exactly, right. So it ends up distorting investment and understanding.
But it's also a very simple pitch too. That's the other thing, is that it's a really simple pitch to make to these businesses. We'll put you everywhere your customers are looking for information, and a lot of businesses are savvier than they used to be, but it's just easy to sell that product versus others, perhaps.
Thanks for joining David, Mike, and Greg. To stay on top of the latest developments in local, subscribe to our newsletter at nearmedia.co. We'll see you next week.